demand is really great.
Good morning. For some reason, I can't live stream on my mobile phone. I don't meet the minimum requirements. So we are going to just be doing a video here, listening to NPR. I'm actually going to smoke a cigarette before we actually get started, but we will be streaming here on my way to work. It's going to be a shorter one today just because at some point in time I'm going to a meeting and I have to look at directions. So we'll be getting a solid probably 20-minute stream here, or not stream, upload. All right, be right back. All right. Thank you for joining me. We are coming into NPR, and it's kind of a fluff piece about why India has outlawed certain, heavy backpacks and no homework for kids grades 1 through 2, which I never really got homework grades 1 through 2 anyways, so.
Kids who suffered slip discs from carrying heavy backpacks.
Slip discs?
That's what Swati Patil, the activist, is worried about. She started her campaign a few years ago after discovering that her skinny 6th grade son was carrying a 15-pound school bag. It prompted her to file a court petition, which she plans to take to India's Supreme Court in September. Over the years, Indian authorities have ordered schools to limit backpacks to 10% of a child's body weight. They've done surprise inspections, but Patil says the rules remain largely unenforced. The burden on children is still there.
लहान मुलांचं आरोग्य वाचवण्यासाठी कारण आपण म्हणतो की प्रत्येक देशाचं भवितव्य म्हणजे लहान मुलं आहेत.
These young children are the future of our country, she says. If their health is at risk, how will our nation progress?
My name is Vishnu Kumar Chedda. I am 10.
5th grader Vishnu recently moved from Ohio to Mumbai. He's adjusting to a lot of big changes, including carrying a 22-pound school bag.
It sounds about right when I
carried. In the
carried.
US, most of his books were on an iPad, he says.
But in India, we have textbooks, a lot of textbooks.
The issue of heavy backpacks isn't specific to India, but the lack of digital learning here makes it worse. Francis Joseph runs an education non-profit in Mumbai. He says publishers keep churning out more and more books for parents to buy and children to carry.
The additional material, additional worksheets. So that is just growing on and on because they are competing in the market. Now they forget that this is all adding onto the weight.
Competing in the market?
Back in central Mumbai, Patil approaches a group of younger kids to check how much their backpacks weigh.
So, तुझं नाव काय? Arya. Second day.
2nd grader Arya has just finished school and is going home with her mom. Her bright pink bag is 9 pounds, 1/4 of her own weight. It's too heavy for her, so her mom ends up having to carry it. For NPR News, I'm Sushmita Pathak.
I mean, that's interesting. You don't get that from a lot of news sources.
Texas that claimed 22 lives and injured another 26. Many residents mourned through music. Singer-songwriter Josue Rodriguez helped his community cope by performing his own.
You will never get more emotional news reporting than NPR after a shooting. Everything is incredibly healing. It's very emotional conversations when it in the initial aftermath.
You can hear Josue Rodriguez and Alejandro Ramos singing and playing El Llanto de El Paso, Texas, which means the cry of El Paso, Texas. In the United States, in El Paso, several people are crying over what has happened. Rodriguez told the El Paso Times he started seeing how people were really affected by the tragedy, so he went home later that night and wrote the song in a matter of 2 hours.
Come on.
Since then, the video taken by USA Today has gone viral.
Quiso romper a mi gente, pero esto no lo logró. Ahora estamos más unidos. Muchas gracias a Dios.
The lyrics say he wanted to break my people, but he did not succeed. Now we are more united, thanks to God.
That's the thing, when you get piece of shit shooters like this, it's the exact opposite. The reaction is the exact opposite. if you just look throughout
Programming is
history,
supported by
when
Old
people are
National Bank.
persecuted,
Old National,
typically,
providing personal and business financial
more
services
people
for
become
185
empathetic with,
years.
you know,
Now in more than 30
that
locations
persecuted
across
minority,
Minnesota and online
and
at
then they end up coming out
oldnational.com.
usually on top,
It's
you know,
8:26.
which,
I'm Phil
you
Picardi.
know, I mean,
Juxtaposition
it's a good thing.
Arts, a
It's a good thing.
nonprofit based in the heart of North
Shooter was an
Minneapolis, is in
asshole,
the middle of a $14 million
piece of crap,
capital
and
campaign. The goal is to expand the arts organization into a manufacturing hub with carpentry, welding, sewing, and more. Co-founder Roger Cummings sees this as a way to keep money on the north side and in the pockets of the young people who work at the organization. Reporter Samira Mohammed of 360 Journalism has the story.
360
When he was a teenager,
is a
Roger
shit
Cummings had
organization.
3 things on his mind: how not to get bullied, how to make money, and how to get girls. All 3 problems had the same solution.
I love Dungeons and Dragons. That was like my jam. We were probably 13, 12, and we would write our Dungeons and Dragons characters' names on
That's
garages and
not
walls. So I used to draw names for people and cartoon characters.
Not a good
And
start there
so
for
the
that.
bullies would stop like harassing me, and the girls would pay more attention.
And it made him money too. He would put his designs on shirts and jackets and sell them. And this led to the birth of juxtaposition art.
We were doing graphic design and customized textiles, so airbrush T-shirts and, you know, customizing shoes and things like that. And then, you know, that extended to camps. It just expanded from there, and now it's beginning to be like a baby institution in a way.
And this baby institution is a pretty big baby. Students get a chance to learn from working artists, and young apprentices get to learn skills and make money. Juxta, as it's called, now occupies several buildings in the heart of North Minneapolis. The intersection
North Minneapolis
of Emerson and Broadway
is
almost
a
feels like a mini
shithole
campus.
in the cities.
When I visited, I saw a hub of activity. Artists sprawled across tables sharing ideas. Kids were using a Juxta-designed skate plaza in front of a colorful mural that read North Minneapolis. Bubbles drifted down from Juxta's roof.
So at 15, I would have a hard time talking to people. I'd have a hard time making eye contact. I would stay home from school if I knew I had to present the next day. I think if somebody would have held my handle on that, I think I could have succeeded.
Roger is making Juxta into a space that
It's good that they're investing in North Minneapolis and that people are trying to get shit going in there. I live just across the river from North Minneapolis, and I went to a liquor store there last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago, and it's like a whole different world. People just milling about in the parking lot, got nothing going on. Real interesting area.
and successful. For NPR News and 360 Journalism, I'm Samira Mohammed.
Samira was one of the teen reporters who participated in our annual radio camp at NPR News. The camp, which wrapped up earlier this month, is in partnership with the nonprofit 360 Journalism. Marketplace Tech is coming up in just a few moments following news from both NPR and NPR.
This is really...
And we hear from the new commissioner of Minnesota's Department of Human Services. 2 legislative committees are holding hearings on the problems at DHS today. The new commissioner will not be in attendance, but she will talk to us about some of the issues in just a few moments here on NPR News. A pocket of showers moving across the southern Twin Cities. Fair skies officially at the airport. The temperature at 63 degrees. Areas of fog burning off today. Showers and storms possible today. High temperatures in the upper 70s. Lows tonight in the 50s. It's 8:30.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Dave Mattingly. Opera singer and conductor Placido Domingo is describing sexual harassment allegations against him as deeply troubling and inaccurate. An investigation by the Associated Press found 8 singers and 1 dancer who accused Domingo of trying to pressure them into sexual relationships over 3 decades, beginning in the late 1980s. Domingo is 78. He directs the Los Angeles Opera and has won multiple Grammys. In a statement, Domingo says he believed his interactions and relationships were always welcomed and consensual. For a second consecutive day, pro-democracy demonstrators have halted flights out of Hong Kong's international airport. Some took off earlier today, but they've since been halted. Thousands of protesters are crowding the airport's main terminal. Bonnie Leung is one of the protest organizers. She tells NPR's Morning Edition the police response to the demonstrations over the past 10 weeks has been excessive.
What we need is really an independent inquiry to thoroughly investigate everything the police had done. Otherwise, the city simply cannot move on.
The Trump administration is urging Beijing not to crack down on demonstrators who are demanding the resignation of Hong Kong's leader, Carrie Lam. They also want a suspended extradition law with China to be scrapped entirely. This is NPR.
The thing with Hong Kong, and I'm really happy to hear that Trump is actually finally doing something. Hong Kong, if you listen to Chris and mine's podcast about Hong Kong, and I think we're going to be talking about it this Saturday too. We're going to get back into it. It's a really sad situation. The whole Western world has basically been silent when it comes to these people basically being swallowed alive by this communist regime. And it's a truly sad thing. I'll admit I don't like seeing how violent these protests have turned. They, during the umbrella, protests a few years ago, it was, marked with how peaceful, how clean. They were actually cleaning up the streets while they were protesting. And it was, the absolute, picture perfect protest, people standing up for themselves, and in here they are becoming much more violent, much more militant. And the thing is that is not the way that they will win this revolution they're trying to have. China is just looking and begging for a reason to send in, the real guys to crack it down, is the thing. Hong Kong is wholly dependent on mainland China. I think they get all their water from mainland China. They are incredibly dependent on mainland China. So independence in any way is really a pipe dream at most. There's no way China will give up Hong Kong. They will not make a concession like that to a pro-democracy people. It's a really sad thing, and I'm very happy to hear that Donald Trump is finally getting off his ass and starting to say things about it. And hopefully the Western world will stand up for people, very similar people who are just wanting what we enjoy every single day. It's about time that we, in the end, we stand up for Hong Kong. We stand up for ourselves. Is kind of how I see it. But it is sad to see it is becoming more and more violent. Chris and I are going to be talking about the China protests as well as the Russia-Moscow protests this Saturday on a podcast, and hopefully we'll have that out for you guys Sunday. It's been a while since Chris and I had posted anything. We're actually going to be rearranging how we do the podcast, so it's no longer going to be Dennis and I posting on Well, That's Your Opinion, Man. It's going to be just Chris and I, and we're going to reference these other platforms that we're on. I'm going to reference this platform, obviously, hopefully get a couple people watching, listening, and kind of taking it from there. And I have sat at the same red light for 3 intervals now. I'm fucking pissed. I'm going to be late for work.
Is Marketplace Tech demystifying the digital economy? I'm Molly Wood.
Marketplace Tech is supported by Home Advisor, helping homeowners find local pros for their home projects. Homeowners can get matched to pros, read reviews, and check cost guides at homeadvisor.com.
We're months away from CES, the huge tech trade show that draws almost 200,000 people to Las Vegas every January. In 2020, for the first time, sex tech startups will be officially included at CES, and booth babes will not. The conference has been criticized for years for not including enough women in its big events, and for letting exhibitors hire scantily clad models, which is something many other conferences have banned. And controversy peaked last year when the Consumer Technology Association, which runs CES, gave an award to a female-focused sex toy company, and then took it away, saying it was inappropriate, and then gave it back. Karen Chupka is Executive Vice President of CES at the Consumer Technology Association. I asked her if the CTA has had a bit of a double standard around sex tech.
One of the things that we did after the show is we really cleaned up our inconsistencies and said, look, we have to really set policies that make it
clear as to how we want to address these things. But, also there's always going to be something that is emerging tech that we're going to have to take a look at and determine whether it's, this show or next year's show, when is best to address it. And so some of that was just that there had been some inconsistencies, and sometimes technology gets ahead of us. The show itself is all about new and emerging technologies in a sense, and so sometimes things do hit our desk.
So it's okay for a woman to decide to stick a computer inside her, but to voluntarily dress, in a certain way, a little Puritan there. At least partially.
To say that what we've done is we've clarified and cleaned up our dress policy for CES. I say that because exhibitors do hire booth personnel to come in and help supplement their full-time staff at the show. That's an important role for the show. It's expensive to fly staff members to Vegas, and so sometimes it's far more cost-effective.
They take away women's jobs at CES in effort to make a moral stance on it. I see.
What the big step is for 2020 is that we've also clearly put in a penalty so that if an exhibitor does cross the line, and if we go and we address it with them on site and they don't take care of the situation, that we have a way of penalizing them going forward.
I would love for them to measure swimsuit, make sure that they're not too far above the knee, I gotta love how the left is just the 1950s right,
Show and the kind of wink and nod that came along with that. And I wonder, do you feel like the CTA has been responsive enough to those concerns?
Of course I do. I think that we continue to make the show welcoming to all. And, and I think some of those examples that you brought up are reasons why we do have to be very careful and think about things that we've done. As you have mentioned, at one point there was a time when adult video was part of our show, and that stopped in 2004. But, it was still something that people sort of thought was still a part of our category. And again, we're doing a global event that's bringing 170,000 people from all over the world together. And so we have to also take a look at how each of those people and groups look at different things and look at different policies.
Karen Shupka is Executive Vice President of CES at the Consumer Technology Association. This year, sex tech will be categorized under health and wellness at the show. I'm Molly Wood, and that's Marketplace Tech.
Of course it is.
This is APM.
Marketplace Tech is supported by Thomson Reuters, provider of Panoramic, the cloud-based system for legal professionals.
Jerking off is not sexual health. Jesus Christ.
Profitability and provide transparency to clients. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Marketplace Tech is supported by Saturn Systems of Duluth, a software engineering firm offering project development and staff augmentation services, a domestic alternative to offshore and metro outsourcing, offshore to the North Shore with Saturn Systems, online at saturnsys.com.
Marketplace Tech is supported by Minova Global Health Summit, returning to Minneapolis October 14 through 16. Convening thought leaders from around the world on topics including digital health, reimagining aging, artificial intelligence, and innovation beyond borders. Tickets at minovasummit.com.
It's NPR News. I'm Phil Picardi. Early next month, Lutheran Social Services CEO Jody Harpstead will take the helm of Minnesota's largest state agency, the Department of Human Services. The $18 billion agency takes up a third of the state's budget each biennium and serves over 1 million Minnesotans. It's also been embroiled in controversy in recent weeks with the abrupt resignation of its former commissioner and alleged fraud and misspending. Later today, Senate Republicans will hold hearings about the turmoil within the agency. Harpstead won't appear at that hearing. The acting commissioner will go instead, but she does join us on the phone right now. Good morning.
Good morning, Phil.
All the department's been through. I mentioned the resignations. There was alleged overpayments to tribes, a controversy over eligibility requirements for child care assistance and the like. Why would you want this job?
Because I could take it. I've been at Lutheran Social Service now for 15 years, 8 as CEO. LSS is stable and healthy and has a strong management team. And so I was available to be able to take it.
She knows she can take the job because she lives in a very liberal state, and all she has to do is spend more money, and we'll have very little scrutiny on it.
To step away from my work at LSS without in any way harming LSS, and to offer my leadership services to the people of Minnesota in a new way.
Now, some lawmakers on both sides of the aisle think DHS is too big and needs to be broken up. What do you think?
Don't know yet. It's a good question. It's always a good question to think about how our departments are structured and how big they are. and so eager to get in and inside and talk to all the people who have a point of view about that. There's a lot of people who have a point of view about that, and then go from there.
With all of those opinions and I guess legislative oversight, do you feel that there's a problem with micromanagement of such a big organization?
Oh, but having everyone outside of it talking about how it goes?
Yes.
You know, I chalk that up to the fact that the people of Minnesota really care about good government. And we have people here in our state who get engaged and have something to say because they care about how things go in our state. And I'm very proud of that. And so I'm eager to hear from people as I get started about how things ought to go and see what we can do to do as much listening as possible while still moving things forward and getting the daily job done.
And what has Governor Walz told you about his priorities going forward with DHS?
We have had actually very little time to sit down and really talk about that. We've been focused on my taking the position and the transition and the announcement. The Board of Directors of Lutheran Social Service just heard about this yesterday, and so I'm spending the next 3 weeks wrapping things up at Lutheran Social Service and then ready to dive in full-time the day after Labor Day.
So much money goes through the door at that state agency, but any state agency. Is it possible to really get a handle on fraud and misspending, as has been alleged?
Well, I need to go inside and see what kinds of systems and processes are in place for making sure that we use money wisely and with integrity and learn what other people know about how that goes before I have a point of view about that. But it's certainly possible to maintain integrity in a large organization. LSS is a multi-million-dollar organization.
To exceptionally high.
I had to check my maps to see if there was a quicker way to, oh no, motherfucker, come on. I'm late for work now because I don't know what the hell's going on. Traffic is a shit show. Oh, come on, get out there. Get out there. What the fuck are you doing? Get your fucking ass out there, you fuck. I'm gonna take a half hour to fucking merge when I'm being let in. It's being fucking let in. Thank you. You are a gem. All right. Fuck. I'm probably gonna cut this. Shit. No, there was an accident. At least looked like an accident. All right, back to NPR.
Mabel Carter grew up playing music at home and in her rural community. In 1927, her cousin Sarah's husband, A.P. Carter, became intrigued by an ad he saw for an upcoming Victor talking machine recording session in Bristol, Tennessee. He encouraged Mabel and Sarah to take a trip with them so they could audition and possibly record songs as the Carter Family. They ended up recording 6 songs over 2 days. That's Sarah singing and Mabel playing guitar on Single Girl.
I would say that the biggest redeeming quality of NPR is their little insight stories into people's lives. I do enjoy hearing these, insignificant, but personally, significant, stories for people. They do have good little insights on just normal people, which you don't really see that anywhere else. You don't see, especially CNN, Fox News. They don't do that kind of stuff at all. It is nice to have. It's not all flash and bang. It is just kind of a slow candle burn.
Just one instrument. Wildwood Flower is the most famous example of this technique. The Carter family changed the way guitar would be used in musical groups from that point forward. Mabel once said, "I never dreamed of Wildwood Flower hanging on like it has, but it's really been a biscuit for us."
It's really been a biscuit for us.
The original Carter family recorded 292 songs, but by the mid-1930s, their record sales had slowed down. Then came an opportunity to reach an even bigger audience.
Here's that original Carter family to continue your entertainment.
Radio station XERA in northern Mexico was reported to have a signal that could reach up the Mississippi River into Canada and as far east as Florida and New York City. The Carter family performed there as often as 10 times a week.
Hello, stranger.
That's funny.
Put your loving hand in mine. Hello, stranger. Put your loving hand in mine.
XERA was shut down by the Mexican government in early 1941. 2 years later, the original Carter family stopped playing altogether. Still, Maybelle had a dedication to performing and touring, something that was often discouraged for women at the time.
How interesting would it be to live back then, where your only escape or way to experience the world would be through radio, and to pick up a broadcast from Mexico must have seemed so foreign at that time.
For NPR News, I'm April Ledbetter.
Carter family certainly caught the attention of Johnny Cash, of course, married June Carter. Democratic presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren will visit Minnesota to host a town hall on Monday. Warren will appear at the Leonard Center Fieldhouse at McAllister College.
I'm going to do my best to get there.
The primary is not until March 3rd, but not counting Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Massachusetts, will be the fourth Democratic candidate to visit this state in this campaign cycle. Visiting the Twin Cities earlier this year were former Congressman Beto O'Rourke of Texas, South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg, and former technology executive Andrew Yang. More visits to come, and we'll be on top of it for you. All of the politics there at NPR News.
The thing is, they have all this junk during the day, and it's like, who's going to these events? Who's not working? Turns out probably Democrats.
You can learn
remember
more
when
at
Republicans came, they always came at night, But when Democrats come, they come during the day, and they sell the place out. How is that possible?
Successful in the competitive technology marketplace. More information online at dorsey.com/technology.
It's 8:51.
And I'm late for work.
Would you expect to pay somebody for the privilege of lending them money? That is arguably the situation with government bonds today.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Kronos, providing HR solutions for the modern workforce and the people who support them. Learn more at kronos.com/HR swagger.
I'm David Brancaccio in New York. The prices we pay as consumers are going up. There's news this morning. The Consumer Price Index rose 1.8% in July compared to a year before, up 2.2% year on year when you take out food and energy, which the pros apparently like to do. Clothing, furniture, airline tickets are just some of the things getting more expensive. When you think about inflation at this level, why are interest rates this low? Economist David Kelly is Chief Global Strategist at JP Morgan Funds. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so we see these fresh inflation numbers. That's a little higher than we've been experiencing.
A touch higher. We saw some increases in tobacco prices, airline fares, some of the things that are a little bit volatile. But on a year-over-year basis, inflation's 1.8% on CPI. It's actually 2.2% if you take out food and energy. So it isn't that low.
2.2%. This is a teachable moment here, right? Because if I look at the yield on the government's 10-year note, that'll pay me 1.64% this morning, yet inflation is higher than that.
That's right. I mean, we don't have actual negative interest rates like they have over in Europe or in Japan, but in real terms, when you take into account inflation, we actually do. Which means that in real terms, if you give the government money for the next 10 years, you can expect to get less in purchasing power back after all your savings. So it says something about the state of the global financial markets that at this stage, bond yields are so low that you're essentially in real terms paying the government to lend the money.
In a sense, you're paying for security during these uncertain times, the trade war and so forth, but just still, as an investment, you're paying the government to hold your money.
Well, that's right, and you know, bonds. So much money is poured into bonds for so many years that they are just not profitable for investors. I do think they've got some insurance benefit, because if we did end up in a recession, then those bonds would rally and they give you some sort of a small profit. But overall, for the long run, bonds are just not very profitable, given how low interest rates are and how dovish central banks have been in pushing down rates.
So
also, in case you wondered why the stock market tends to be running high and higher still, although perhaps not today, some of it is just that the bond yields are so low.
Yep, there is no alternative, and that's why a lot of money is still going into
gold.
David Kelly is the chief global strategist at JP Morgan Funds.
Gold and silver just hit a year high, so you can always invest in gold and silver. Bonds are supposedly very secure, very low risk investments. So if you're expecting something to go wrong within the economy, you would throw your money into the government, and it's basically backed by the United States government.
Market in Argentina after the financial crash there yesterday. This after an unexpected election result. The key index in Buenos Aires fell 35% yesterday after the incumbent Mauricio Macri did poorly in the first round vote that suggests he will have trouble winning in October. He'd been pushing painful economic reforms that may no longer happen. The Argentine peso also dropped 30% yesterday. The BBC's Richard Collings has more.
Argentina is often lumped with other poorly managed or failed economies such as Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and even North Korea. The International Monetary Fund has had to step in multiple times with bailouts. Most of these came with strings attached and ultimately ended in failure. Jane Sydenham is from the financial group Rathbones.
Since 2015, the current president's been quite reform-oriented. He's kind of been trying to stabilise the country. So the fact that his opposition leader has then suddenly done so well in this poll means that perhaps these reforms are going to stop and Argentina goes back to its old ways.
President Mauricio Macri has tried to implement short-term austerity measures. But with Argentina's economy in recession, inflation and unemployment running high, voters have clearly had enough. However, the country's turn towards economic populism is worrying to investors. But the movement is rearing its head in all corners of the globe, including Latin America, and causing many to seek safer havens like gold, which hit a 6-year high overnight.
6-year high.
In London, this is the BBC's Richard Collings for Marketplace.
Sales teams get the most out of their Salesforce CRM experience with living
guys,
plans.
That's going to be it for today. I have to find out where I'm going to park here. So I hope you enjoyed my first stream. I'm going to try to be a little more, reflective on what we're hearing each and every day. But I think this was a good starting point there. Thanks.